Hello, everyone. I wanted to take a moment and do a bit of housekeeping on the content I've been posting so far on this channel. Recently, I have noticed some, I guess it could be described as shallow criticism being directed at both myself and the guests I have had on. Some of this confusion I think is worth addressing, in part because I often take a devil's advocate approach to interviewing. I have yet to talk about my own personal approach to the broad subjects of both the arts and humanities. And I think the best way to explain my position is to show you what I have said in the past. The clip you are about to watch features me in an interview I gave to Dr. Benjamin Whitcomb last year on his podcast. Most of the interview covered my background as a musician, and I will link the full interview below in the description if you're watching on YouTube. But at the end, he asked me about a rather controversial lecture recital that I had given for my master's degree titled The Postmodern Conundrum: Why Art Needs Objectivity. In it, I try to link a philosophy of beauty and shared reality as applied to music and the arts more broadly. This caught the attention of several, well, now colleagues, some of whom you've even seen on the podcast. I hope this segment clears up any confusion you all might have and opens you to a worldview that you might not have considered for. And as I always say, words for your consideration.
There's one last thing that was on my mind, and that was, I like to do a bit of digging on the various people I'm going to have as guests. And you did what I thought was an interesting lecture recital about the, art needing to have some objective framework. And it's funny because there's a number of people, it seems, who almost they want to shy away from even trying to define art. Well, I know what it is when I see it, or something like that.
Right.
But I just wondered, do you have anything you want to share as kind of an overall takeaway of this idea of art being grounded in just reality?
Yes. So when I was doing my associate's degree at Del Mar College, the theory teacher at the time introduced us to 433 by John Cage and said, "What do you all think?" And I was 16 at the time, and I didn't have the vocabulary to articulate what it was that I found so disparaging about what I was listening to, or lack thereof, what wasn't being played. The lecture recital that I did, I opened with 433, which is where you sit at the piano and you don't play anything for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. And it was the longest 4 minutes and 33 seconds, not just for me, but for the audience. I mean, when the timer went off, there was an audible sigh of, "Oh my gosh, finally, it's over with." I chose the topic, the postmodern conundrum, why art needs objectivity. And there's before I continue, there's an important nuance here. This isn't to say that art is purely objective. This is good, this is bad. There's elements to that, but there's obviously the level of the subjective preference. So I can recognize the fact that, let's say, Beethoven Symphony Number 3 is a great symphony. I don't personally enjoy it. It's my problem. I love Beethoven. It's just not a symphony that speaks to me personally. But there's elements of the construction of that symphony that I can look at and go, okay, obviously this is well crafted. Obviously this is well put together. This is put together by somebody who knows what they're doing. There's elements that I can point to that do not belong to me, that exist outside of me, that I can reference to. My issue with the postmodern take on art in general is that it is merely subjective. And the word merely there is doing a lot of work for me. But it is a merely subjective experience. So I can look at, I referenced Duchamp's fountain, which is the urinal that he signed, and now there's replicas in multiple art museums around the world. And he said, this is art. And it's the act of taking a picture frame, slapping it around anything that you want and saying, this is art. Well, in this situation, the term art has become meaningless. It can be substituted with anything. It's like, if anything can be art, then we can also say nothing can be art. And intuitively, there's something about that we kick against, that we go, that's not quite right. There's something in that premise that's not working. So the purpose of the lecture was to ask a better question about art than was being currently articulated. The conversation around art had devolved into merely subjective preferences, and that obviously isn't true. Like if I picked up the violin right now and started playing, it would be scratchy and squeak and it would sound awful. And we would and we would recognize it as awful. There wouldn't be a question, this is terrible playing. This is abysmal. David, what are you doing? Why would you do this? This is awful. Put it away. That's not just opinion. There's things that we can point to that exist outside of just, oh, it's my opinion. Yes, it's your opinion, but it is a correctly oriented opinion. The other article I wrote in a companion piece to the postmodern conundrum was the $1 million stick figure, where I laid out an analogy of a stick figure that I draw, and you look at the stick figure and you see that it's just a circle, a horizontal, a vertical line for the body, a horizontal line for the arms, two diagonal, horrible diagonal, uneven diagonal lines. And you say, well, yeah, this is scrap. I mean, this is it's a stick figure. It's nothing. Anyone can do this. But I look at the stick figure and I say, no, Professor Whitcomb, you don't understand. This stick figure, the nostalgia that it evokes for me, I couldn't put a price on this. This is the most incredible stick figure in the world. How could you not see? How could you not see how valuable this stick figure is? What is wrong with you? And here would be an example of just me not knowing how to appreciate great art. My wife and I, we were just at the Georgia Museum of Art, where they have these incredible Renaissance paintings, there's incredible American paintings, Russian realism. There was Eastern Orthodox iconography. I mean, it was gorgeous. And then at the end of the exhibit was the modern art, which is just splatters of paint on a canvas. And they say, well, this means to me, this is the story of my childhood. These are the sounds in the bedroom that I heard. Something ridiculous that has nothing to do with the art in front of you. And it's not nothing to put these things together. There's no such thing as a meaningless piece of art. And one of the things that I've been trying to demonstrate is that when you are able to appreciate great art versus non-great art outside of the merely subjective, that it's actually nourishing for you. There's a great philosopher named Roger Scruton who said, and I'm paraphrasing slightly, but he had said that art serves no utilitarian function. It serves something far more important, the human function. And what happens is that if you surround yourself with things that are ugly and chaotic, like if you have a messy bedroom, a messy kitchen, if you have ugly art hanging around you, that's going to affect you in some way, versus if you live in a beautiful environment. I mean, even if you go to places that have clearly taken care, it doesn't even have to be art. It can be a well-manicured lawn. People behave better around things that are beautiful. It changes you in a way that's positive. And that's not a merely subjective experience at that point. There's something that speaks beyond you. In Plato's theory of forms, he lays out this idea where everything is an imitation of something else. So if I ask you to define a chair as an example, that might be difficult, but and this is the example I use in the lecture. If you have a couch, a chair, and a stool, no matter what it looks like, as long as it has the form of each of these objects, you will recognize what these objects are. There's something inside of you that recognizes the form that goes beyond you. And at the highest of the forms is the form of the good. It's something that we should all be aspiring towards. And if the good is not the thing that you're aspiring towards outside of yourself, then the hierarchy of values falls apart. And so it is with art. I mean, this is why music is important in this way. It has the ability to manifest abstractions that words and images alone cannot fully realize. And what you're putting out there does affect people around you. So it's not good. It's not enough to put out whatever you want and say, oh, it's great. You have to actually take the time to realize quality in art, because it does affect people. In the same way a child wouldn't recognize the quality of a fine wine versus chocolate milk. If you said, no, the fine wine, it's rich in flavor, it's wonderful, you should try it. No, I want the chocolate milk. I want the pizza. I don't want the steak. And that's not because the child is stupid, or it's just a matter of ignorance. You don't know what you're missing, in other words. So that's kind of what that's a brief summary of the work that I'm trying to do currently.
All right. Well, Thank you for that. And I mean, I do think that everybody benefits a lot from thinking about everything from the broader what art is to what is this particular piece I'm about to play, and what are its objective merits aside from the things that just happen to resonate with me in particular.
Yeah, I don't know if
It,
this has been your experience with your students, but I'm always puzzled when, if I ask you how do you make music? That's a relatively easy question, but when I've asked many of my colleagues, why do we make music? I get these blank faces and just, oh, I don't know. I've never thought about that. And that's an important question. I don't know if you've experienced that with your students, but I've certainly experienced that with many of my students and colleagues.
I can certainly say in teaching a class like form, there are a lot of things that we do almost just like assume are the case about objective references and objective things about the grounding of art and musical art that that aren't necessarily, I mean, it's like in some ways they almost rise above whatever philosophy people claim to have. If you go online and you look up a master class by any number of great musicians, they're pointing to the things that make Beethoven's Symphony 3 great, and how this phrase goes to here, and how this modulation reflects this, this other thing there. And so, I mean, I do think when I go to a performance or when I watch online a performance, I can kind of tell the degree to which somebody has put thought into these things, versus it's like being handed somebody else's fingerings versus coming up with your own. It's
Sure.
just that much more real.